If when you think of comics you only think of these, then stick around until the end of the video because we're going to expose ourselves to an entire world of comics. And if you like comics but the people around you mock you for that, then show them this. We're going to explain why comics are art and why we haven't even scratched the surface of the potential this medium has. But let's start with what a comic book actually is. Will Eisner defined comic books as sequential art, which is mostly agreed upon. Scott McCloud defines it as a juxtaposed pictorial and other images in deliberate sequence intended to convey information and/or to produce an aesthetic response in the viewer. Say that 5 times fast. That one's a bit wordy, but it does make you realize that comics impact us on a regular basis without us knowing. Even a pictorial instruction booklet is a comic. Now, a comic book is not a genre, whereas superheroes are. The confusion lies in the definitions. Some of the confusion comes from the fact that when we think of early comic books, we tend to think of the 1930s and characters born from that era like Superman. But comics go way further back than that. Comics, if we use our previous definition, can be traced back to cave paintings. These are images put in deliberate sequence to produce a response. One of the most famous works of art is the Bayeux Tapestry, thought to date back to the 11th century. It's a series of images put in deliberate sequence to produce a response. A pre-Columbian picture manuscript discovered in the 16th century is a series of images put in deliberate sequence to produce a response. Maybe that's going too far back, and maybe that's stretching the definition to fit my point. So let's get a little more modern and to the very first comic book. Rodolphe Töpfer's The Adventures of Obadiah holds the honour of being the first comic book, published in 1837. This led the way for comics in the Victorian era, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to look at the previous title holder of first comic book, which was by Richard F. Outcault. He created The Yellow Kid in McFadden's Flat, which was a comic strip published in a newspaper in 1895. The paper was owned by Joseph Pulitzer. You might know him from the Pulitzer Prize. Anyway, Outcault decided to switch newspapers from the New York World paper to the New York Journal in 1896. The problem was, he wasn't able to secure the copyright for his comic strip, so Pulitzer, like a simply carried it on with different artists. Fun fact, this is also where the phrase yellow journalism comes from, because of the yellow kid in McFadden's Flats. Creators losing ownership of their IP is also an issue littered throughout comics history, but that's a story for another time. Isn't learning fun? So from this, we can start to get a picture of the impact comics have had on us over the centuries. But it feels like we're avoiding the elephant in the room. So let's talk about superheroes. For people who feel that comics are childish and all comics are superheroes, you're wrong on 2 fronts.
Just like wrong.
First, let's imagine if we had a similar attitude to films or books. Imagine if we felt that all films were mindless Michael Bay movies, or that all books were 50 Shades of Grey. It feels kind of stupid to even consider that, right? So why do the same for comics? Comics are seen in a similar way to how TV used to be seen. TV was seen as a lower form of entertainment compared to the movie-going experience of the cinema. But shows like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad helped shatter that illusion, and now, with streaming being the big new thing, TV may even eclipse cinema. What TV needed was to be taken seriously and show people that it could tell engaging, long-form and mature stories for audiences to get invested in. And it did. So are comics pointless, immature stories of heroes punching baddies? Yeah, some are, in the same way that some TV shows are pointless and immature. But those stories are a drop in the ocean. Comics have built this reputation of being a bit cheesy, poorly drawn and badly written, and this is stuck in the minds of the masses. But the comics that were bad were lost to time, and the comics that were good became the mainstays that we see today. And although these comics were good, they were still seen as immature, targeted towards a younger audience. And this is the thing that people bump up against. They either don't know or don't care enough to know of the thousands of comics that they could potentially fall in love with. For America, writers like Alan Moore, Frank Miller and Neil Gaiman led the charge of writing gritty, mature and deep stories, either through original characters or reimagined ones like Batman. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons even took the genre and satirized the shit out of it with their 1986 comic Watchmen. This was the same year that Art Spiegelman's Mouse was released as a book, which remains the only comic to receive a Pulitzer Prize. These books were revolutionary at the time, and they're still fantastic reads to this day. For Batman fans, you have The Dark Knight Returns or The Killing Joke. For horror fantasy fans, Neil Gaiman's The Sandman is incredible and was released over 20 years ago. And even these examples are a drop in the ocean. The best time to become a comic book fan is today, because there are more creators out there now than ever before. You can read comics online for free on sites like Tapas and Webtoon, or search social media like Reddit, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook and find comic groups that have creators in them. Go to your local comic book store and tell them what sort of things you like, and they will find you a book or two that you'll be interested in. Search online stores like Forbidden Planet here in the UK, or the thousands of list articles to find comics that suit your tastes. Comics deserve to be on the shelf alongside the most well-respected books. They're not the childish and immature hobbies they were once seen as. They are pure art forms, and granted I might be a little biased, they are the ones with the most potential. The next time you see a new film or TV series come out, find out whether it's based on a comic book. Did you like Snowpiercer? Comic book. 300? Comic book. Big Hero 6? Manga. Blade? Comic. Constantine? Comic. From Hell, Hellboy, Kick-Ass, Kingsman, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Mask, Men in Black, Red, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Scott Pilgrim, Sin City, Tank Girl, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, V for Vendetta, The Walking Dead, Watchmen, and every Marvel and DC film ever. All fucking comics. And if you have a few extra bucks lying about, have a look at Kickstarter and back a comic or two. We will get the best out of comics if we back the independent creators of those comics. Granted, I'm a little biased here too, but I don't have anything to sell you right now, so I'm not even including myself in this. Anyway, that's something that's been on my mind for a while now, so it's good to get it out there. I will be doing a few videos like this talking about the industry, and I hope you join me for those because it's a weird and extraordinary place. So hit the subscribe button and I'll see you next week. I've been Brinkley, have fun drawing and read a comic book.